Welcome to Azeroth United, a weekly podcast about World of Warcraft. My name is Denethar, and I am your host.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Today is Tuesday, July 16th, and this is episode 44 of Azeroth United. We've got quite a show for you lined up today. We're going to be talking about the Cataclysm Classic PTR that was just announced. We're going to talk a little bit about Season Discovery Phase 4. We've got some War Within PTR and beta news, and we're going to do a little bit of a Dragonflight Retrospective. So pull up a chair, sit back, relax, and enjoy. And as always, if you have any questions or comments about the podcast, or if you have a particular topic that you'd like to hear discussed, please email us at azerothunitedpod@gmail.com. Also, if you enjoy the podcast, please consider leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. That really helps out the distribution for the podcast. That's the name of the game, so we got to do it. It really helps out. I had no idea that this was so crucial, but over the past few months, I've really learned. So that's why I keep asking for these 5-star reviews. So if you're so inclined, we'd be very grateful, and I'll read it on the air. The other thing is, if you're watching us on YouTube, please do consider giving us a like and a subscribe. That also would really help out tremendously. The YouTube algorithm is weird. So because of that, I actually took the podcast and moved it to its own channel. So it's no longer part of my Denethar01 YouTube channel. I've created its own. It's a unique deal. It's Azeroth United Pod on YouTube. So you might have seen a post from my YouTube channel if you're subscribed. If not, I'll put a link in the show notes and you can check that out. All of the show episodes are there. I don't have any of the video podcasts uploaded there, and I wasn't sure. I still haven't decided if I'm going to put those on the new YouTube channel, or if I'm going to keep them on the old one, or maybe upload them to both. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. I'm still figuring this out. So anyway, if you want to check that out and give us a like and subscribe there, that would be amazing. I'd really appreciate it. So before I get to the news, I just wanted to do a quick rundown of what I got up to last week in World of Warcraft. I did a lot in WoW, but it was a lot of the same thing. So in preparation for the War Within, I decided I'm going to start getting my characters ready for pre-patch. So I went through and I ran 2 LFR wings and 1 heroic dungeon on like 8 of my alts. I wanted to get as much bullion as I could to try and either get cosmetics or get a couple pieces of upgrade. And then the other one is just if you have 3 great vault slots available and you don't pick any of the items, you get 6 tokens. You can get 3 worm crest upgrades. Basically, it's like 45 worm crests that you can get from that. So anyway, the long and short of it is I'm trying to get everyone upgraded and prepped and ready to go. And then also part of that was trying to decide which of my so I have 2 Battle.net accounts. So of those 2 Battle.net accounts, which ones are going to be my 4 that are on the warband screen when you log in? Who's going to be standing around the campfire waiting, pick me, and who's going to be relegated to the sidebar? We'll see. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. It's really going to depend on who I decide I want to level up first in the War Within. But, these are the things that a committed alcoholic, wow, that was a Freudian slip there, that a committed alcoholic has to consider and has to look at. So as a result of that, I've trying to make sure that I'm all prepped. I've got my spreadsheet set up. I'm figuring out who still needs to get more bullions, because apparently we're not getting any more bullions, but we'll get into that in a little bit. So I did that. I didn't get into Remix at all. I was going to log on to Season Discovery, and then I didn't, because I got to the login screen and that was as far as I got. And I was like, you know what? I'm not doing it. I'm not Season of Discovering it. And I was actually talking to someone on the Discord about how I want to play Season of Discovery. I want this to be a thing that is exciting and that is fun, but it's just not. It's not enjoyable for me, and that's just for me. So, which is a bummer, because I really love Classic, and I loved the idea of Season of Discovery. I haven't tried out the new dungeon because you have to be higher levels for that. So. Really not going to be a whole lot there. I do have some hotfixes. We'll get into all that later. All right, I'm just rambling at this point, so we've got a lot to talk about, so let's get into it.
It's time for the news.
In Blizzard news, so the big news of the day, of course, breaking news. It's all over the internet. Classic era players have signed a petition demanding that Blizzard revert the changes to Classic era that were done last week. Of course, we're talking about the guild interface updates, druids using polearms, a couple of other little things. And first of all, I'm being facetious, of course, but I do find it a little disingenuous that the change.org petition that they submitted does call specifically for reverting all changes except for the Chrono Boom, because they like that one. So they said, "We the people demand Activision Blizzard honor..." First of all, Activision Blizzard, no. This is now Microsoft. "We the people demand Activision Blizzard honor the initial promise that was made to us and immediately revert vanilla WoW Classic era back to its original design with no changes other than Chrono Boon, and never attempt to change Classic era servers again. Blizzard has gone too far. If you love vanilla WoW, kindly sign this petition and show your support." Right. First of all, whether they do or not, I don't know. I think the update was a mistake. I don't think they intended to do it, but it happened, and here we are. But aside from that, look, people. Blizzard, it's a computer system, right? So no matter what you do, no matter what's going on, there's always going to be some sort of an issue when you're updating things. And Season of Discovery, Hardcore, and Era, I believe, all run on the same client. So if that's true, that means that all those different game modes, they have to be tagged or some sort of identification that goes, okay, well, this is a hardcore system, or this setting is for hardcore, this setting is for era, this setting is for Season of Discovery, and so on. I mean, I don't know, because obviously I don't work for Blizzard, but it's my understanding that they operate WoW much like a traditional computer system. So in this case, yeah, unfortunately, it looks like these changes were leaked onto the main era servers, and that's really unfortunate. So are they going to revert the changes? Maybe. I don't know. Blizzard has done a lot to change things around and to really help appease the fan base, but I don't think that this petition is really the way that I don't know. I'm not sure. The other thing that I think is kind of interesting is that this was started by Cargos. And anybody who knows Cargos knows that as a streamer, he's very opinionated, and he was one of the big proponents of hardcore back in the day, the original hardcore add-on that was running on was it Defiance Brotherhood? Anyway, really pushed the hardcore scene and tried to make sure that was something that was going on. Anyway. I think he's an interesting guy. He's a lot of intelligent things that he has to say, but I think in this case it's a little I don't know. I guess we'll see. I guess we'll see what comes of it. But this is news, so I'm talking about it. Personally, I don't really care. I think it would be cool for druids to be able to use polearms on Era. There's a lot of really cool polearms that I could use as a feral druid, but that wasn't the game. That's not the game that was released in 2004, and that's not the game that was re-released in 2019. So here we are. So, all right. Moving on. In other news, so we'll tackle Season of Discovery first. So there was a round of hotfixes that went out yesterday on the 15th of July, and the two things that I wanted to point out, I'm not going to go through the whole hotfix list, but there was two things that I wanted to point out that I thought were kind of interesting. One, they fixed the Onyxia attunement questline because it was completely bugged, where Onyxia was spawning in the throne room, but then the event couldn't continue. So I'm not sure what it was that broke that. I mean, maybe it was druids having polearms that broke it. I don't know. But they fixed that. And then the other thing that they fixed was fixed a bug in UBRS preventing Jed Runewatcher from spawning. So both of these are kind of important for early level 60 endgame. Obviously, you want to get into Onyxia's lair, and Onyxia won't launch until June 25th, but still, players want to get ready, they want to get everything prepared. So there's getting everything ready from a preparation standpoint. You're doing all your pre-bis, you're running through all your quests, you're checking your boxes. And the Onyxia quest, so I don't know if if you're a Horde player, or if you haven't done the Onyxia questline in a long time, you might recall that that's the questline where you have to meet Reginald Windsor in front of the gates of Stormwind, and then you march with him all the way through Stormwind, and when you get to the throne room, that's when it's revealed, aha, it's Onyxia in disguise. So, I mean, that's kind of a big deal, especially when that's a very cinematic moment in vanilla WoW. Vanilla WoW didn't have a lot of those big cinematic moments, but when they did, they were really exciting. And none of them played out through cutscenes. There was none of that stuff. We only had what was in the game. And so everything was done through the game. So it had to function properly. You couldn't just play cutscene and then, all right, move on to the next phase. No, you had to have it actually script and play out correctly. So if there's something that's bugged that's causing an issue, obviously that was the case. So they fixed that. And then the other one, Jed Runewatcher, of course. Jed drops the Briarwood Reed, which is the caster best in slot or pre-best in slot item. In some cases, I think most casters are going to use that even through Molten Core and Onyxia Slater. I don't think that you get your Tome of Ephemeral Power, and I don't think that there's anything else that you're going to use other than the Briarwood Reed. So that's really big he was not spawning. I remember back in original Classic, or 2019 Classic, we would go to UBRS. Everybody individually would zone in, look for Jed. If we couldn't find him, we'd zone out, reset, do it again until we found him. And then whoever got that instance, they would invite everyone to the raid. So the dumb things that we did back in Classic. So yeah, that was bad. And of course, then the random mage who just joined the guild would get the Briarwood Reed, and then he'd leave two days later, and that would be the end of it. So yeah. That didn't happen to me at all. Yeah. Anyway, there's a bunch of other changes on here, and I will put them in the show notes, the link to the hotfixes. But really, the big thing was those two that I wanted to highlight and bring up because I thought that was kind of interesting. So, all right, moving on. We have the Cataclysm Classic Phase 2 PTR has been announced. So this will launch on this Friday, which is June 19th. And they're going to start it off with a play with the blues. So I guess we're going to be running Zul'Gurub and Zulaman with the WoW dev team. So that's cool, I guess. They're just trying to generate some hype for this, which I think... Look, whatever's going on with Season of Discovery, the players, I think, have much... There's a lot more embracing of Cataclysm Classic than I think people thought there was going to be. Cataclysm is a good game. It's really good. A lot of people were just disappointed because it changed so much about World of Warcraft fundamentally. So yeah, there was some hesitation going into it, but I think people are really excited about Cataclysm and going into Phase 2. That was a really good, the Rise of the Zandalari patch in Cataclysm, although there was no new raid. Those two originally raids, but then now heroic dungeons. That was fun. Going back and doing those again, it was a lot of fun because those are really well designed instances. Whether it's a raid or a dungeon, the reworked dungeons, they're all really well designed. So I'm really glad that they're hitting this. Now, originally we thought this was that the patch was gonna come in July, but since the PTR is not even showing up until July 19th, it looks like it's going to be sometime in early August. We'll get Cataclysm Classic Phase 2. I don't know if that means that we're going to get the Firelands is going to roll out a little bit later as well, because that was originally slated to come in October. I don't know. We'll see. So Blizzard tweeted out, here's the dates for Cataclysm Classic. We can't hold them to that, obviously, because it's all subject to change. So if we end up with Rise of the Zandalari in August, and then we end up with the Firelands in November or December, so be it. I think people are having fun in Cataclysm. It's obvious that people are frustrated with Season of Discovery, and they're kind of ready for that to... It's more like, hey, they want it to do something. And every time Blizzard releases a new update, it's like, yeah, but we wanted it to do something. So I don't know. I think Season of Discovery might just play out, and unless they have some banger content that comes out, I guess we'll see. So, But yeah, Cataclysm Classic PTR will update for July 19th on Friday. And then that's going to be the Play with the Blues event. So the event actually takes place at 1 p.m. on Friday, 1 p.m. Pacific time on Friday. So if you want to do that, I guess just log in to the PTR and do a pre-made group. I don't know how they're going to divvy that up, or not a pre-made group, but a Dungeon Finder group. Let's see, does it say that? It says, we'll have the Cataclysm Classic PTR open for the testing of the Rise of the Zandalari content, with a focus on the new Troll Dungeons queue up with the Zulamon or Zulgrub dungeons, and you just might be partnered with members of the WoW team. Okay, so go in there and you might get someone from the WoW team. It's like, go to the celebrity golf tournament. You might golf with a celebrity, or you might golf with, Herbert from down the street, who's a weirdo, and he likes to talk too much about, his Bitcoin, and you're just like, oh my God, shut up, Herbert. All right. Anyway, that's a tangent. All right. Moving on to the modern game. So there's two things that I wanted to point out for Dragonflight, or actually just for Modern WoW in general. One is the roadmap that Blizzard posted for the War Within launch. So we've got 4 dates that they highlighted on this roadmap, and I'll put a link to the roadmap so you can see it. It's not a good roadmap like the ones from earlier in the year, where I thought those were really nice because it kind of gave you a sense of time and when things were going to happen. Here, it's a little more muddled. So you've got pre-expansion update available 7/23, so we know that's next Tuesday. Warbands, skywriting, crossrealm guilds. And then the event, which is the Memories of Azeroth, is going to start on the 30th of July. Radiant Echoes is what it's called. Then it's got two dates here, which is early access and global launch. So the early access is obviously August 22nd and the global launch August 26th. Now what it lists here for that is new story, defend Azeroth from the shadows below. All right. New zones, explore 4 sprawling new zones. Cool. Hero talents, unleash new skills and expand your class fantasy. All right. Delves, bite-sized adventures with endgame loot, playable solo or with a group. Okay. Cool. Earthen, play the new Titan Forged allied race. All right. 8 new dungeons. All right. So we're going to get the dungeons and new PvP battleground, Deep Hall Ravine. Now, what it doesn't say is actually much more important than what it does say. It doesn't say anything about heroic dungeons. Blizzard has not given us any information on this. We data mined, or WoW had data mined that heroic dungeons would not be available through the random dungeon finder. You'd have to form a group the old-fashioned way. But Blizzard never actually stated that. It doesn't say anything about which dungeons we're going to be able to run, if we're only going to be able to do the level up dungeons, or if we're going to be able to do the max level dungeons. It doesn't say anything about the delves, which delves we're going to be able to do. It doesn't say anything about the Great Vault and whether or not we're going to get Great Vault items, or whether or not that will start at season 1. So I was hoping for a little bit more information from Blizzard on this, and kind of a more specific, hey, here's what's going to happen in the pre-patch, and here's what's going to happen with the launch or with early access. But aside from that, the last thing on here is Season 1, which starts on September 10th. And again, it doesn't say specifically how things are going to roll out, but it does tell us that we're going to get the Nerubar Palace raid, the Mythic Dungeons, 4 new and 4 returning dungeons. Those returning dungeons, of course, are Necrotic Wake, Mists of Tyrannosaith, Grimbatol, and Siege of Borealis. And then the new PvP season will start, which also includes the new Mythic Plus season, seasonal delves, and class tier sets. Now, it doesn't say anything about Mythic Plus on here. It just says Mythic Dungeons. So is the Mythic Plus starting with week 1 of season 1, or are we going to wait a week before we get Mythic Plus? Also, it doesn't specify here, but we do know that Mythic Raid is going to launch on the 17th of September, not the 10th. So it's nice that they gave us this handy little infographic, but it's missing a lot of specific detail that I think WoW players really want to know. So in this case, unfortunately, this is all we're getting right now. We might get some more later on as we get closer to the War Within, but this is where we are, and this is what we got, and it is a little frustrating. But so be it. So, right. So I'm hoping, my hope would be that we get delves, not the the bountiful delves, but just the regular delves. You give us regular, like normal gear. Dungeons, normal dungeons would be great. Heroic dungeons would be awesome. If we have to put groups together the old-fashioned way and run heroic dungeons, that's fine. I think that's pretty cool. I don't think we should get Great Vault. I think that should start with Season 1. And I don't think that we should... I don't think we should get any extra rewards from that first period from early access through the beginning of Season 1. I think it should just be do the content, no extra rewards, no bonuses. I don't even think we should be getting crests and not flight stones or whatever the new flight stone currency is going to be called. I don't think we should get that until Season 1 starts, but we'll see. We'll see how Blizzard does this. And, I've made some predictions before based on what Blizzard has said and been wrong. So, it's entirely up to them to decide how they want to do this. So, but regardless, we know what the dates are going to be, and we'll log on those dates, and then we'll see what we get. And we'll get what we get, and we won't get upset. Right. Okay. The last thing here I wanted to mention is Wowhead put together a what to do before the War Within pre-patch Season 4 non-awakened raids account services, which is a hell of a title. Wowhead, please work on your titles. This is terrible. Okay. The specifics of what they put on here. And this is, it's all of the things that we already know, but it's nice to have it compiled in a list and go, oh, yeah, that's right. This is happening at this time. All right. So with the end of Season 4 coming, there's going to be this, when the pre-patch hits, that will be the end of Season 4. But we'll have the Season 4 dungeons will continue. So you're still going to be running Ruby Life pools. You're still going to be running No Code Offensive and all that. And you'll have the same affix pool that'll just continue its rotation from Season 4. What we won't have is things like titles. So your Mythic Plus title, your PvP title, those will all end at with the end of the season, which I believe is going to be like 10 o'clock p.m. on the 22nd. That's usually how they do that. But again, they haven't specifically stated that, so we don't know. The other thing is we don't know if they're going to get rid of Bullion. Are we going to keep getting Bullion, or is this it? We're done with Bullion from this point on. There was a thing on Wowhead just a little bit ago that basically said the Bullion counter. So there's a hidden number that there's a macro that you can run. And if you run that macro, it'll show you how many Bullion you've collected. So in my case, like on my Demon Hunter, it said 7 out of 12 Bullion collected. Well, we're on week 13. So every week it's upgraded, or it's increased that number, 7 out of 10, 7 out of 11, 7 out of 12, and et cetera. But from last week to this week, it did not increase. So we didn't go from 12 to 13. We're stuck at 12. So 12 might be the maximum number of Bullion that you can get total. That might just be it. Plus the 4 that you could potentially get from the Dragonflight Dungeon event. So what that means is if you want to buy something with Bullion, you might not get any more. So if you were hoping to get an extra one, or maybe hoping to get some more during the pre-patch period, doesn't look like that's going to be the case. But again, we don't know. We don't know because Blizzard is not telling us. So that's another thing. And then so there's the Bullion. Oh, the Sparks. So if you're trying to get Sparks, we are still getting Sparks. So, or the Spark fragments. So if you are trying to craft something and you've already crafted every piece, and I think what would we have now? This is week 13, so we should have 6 Awakened Sparks. Yeah. Anyway, we are gonna get another Spark this week, so you should be able to get that. Okay, raids. So the thing on raids is all the raids are going to go to Awakened. So if you have been running the non-Awakened raid, say you're an Evoker and you're trying to get the Legendary, and you've been running Aberrus on the weeks where it's not Awakened, so you can just plow through it. Well, it's going to be Awakened every week now. So if you run Aberrus, it's always going to be the hard version. If you run Amir Jasil, it's always going to be the hard version, etc. So if you wanted any of those things, this is the last week to do it. So, obviously, Vault of the Incarnates is Awakened this week. So there will be no more easy mode Vault of the Incarnates. This is it. So anyway, so that's the raids. And then the last thing is so Blizzard mentioned this a week or so ago. but they couldn't give specific dates because they hadn't announced the release of the pre-patch event yet, or the pre-patch launch date. Anyway, so the character restoration service will be disabled starting on the 23rd. So what will happen is if you have a character that you deleted and you're like, oh, you know what? I forgot about, Goreflap, my troll hunter. I'm going to restore that character for the War Within. You better do it now, because as soon as the pre-patch hits, or the day before the pre-patch, you won't be able to restore those anymore because of warbans. They need everything to be in place and to know exactly which characters are there. They don't want to have anyone added to the warbands where they're going through all that data and probably fixing a lot of bugs that are going to happen when the warbands roll out. Character restorations will go away for an undetermined period of time. I guess until Blizzard is satisfied with that the data integrity is good for warbands. The other thing is you cannot transfer between Battle.net accounts. So if you have two Battle.net accounts and you want to move a character from one to the other, you won't be able to do that anymore, period. Not, you can't do it for a little while. No, it's being permanently removed. So you will never be able to transfer between Battle.net accounts again, which is weird. I didn't even know you could do that, honestly. If you have two separate Battle.net accounts and they're both in your name, you won't be able to transfer characters between them anymore. So that's going away. The last one is the guild services that are retiring. So there's the guild faction change and the guild realm transfer. Because we're getting cross-realm guilds, and we already have cross-faction guilds, there's no need to have people paying for a service that is basically already included in the game. So you can already join any guild on any server, at least you will starting on the 23rd. And you can already join a guild, a Horde guild as Alliance, or an Alliance guild as Horde. So those services are being retired. You will still, however, be able to purchase a guild name change. So if you want to change the name of your guild, maybe you named your guild when you were in... You will still be able to... So the guild services... the last one is the guild services are retiring. So the the guild faction change and the guild realm transfer are both retiring. So what's going to happen is those services are just going to go away because we already have cross faction guilds and we're going to get cross realm guilds. And so it really doesn't make sense for people to be paying for a service that is essentially already free. So because of that, those services are going to retire just completely. They're just going away. But you will still be able to purchase a guild name change. So if you have, your guild's name that you came up with when you were 14 and you were being an edgelord and you thought it was really funny and now you're embarrassed by it, you can pay to have that changed. Just saying. Not that you necessarily are going to, but you can, and that's the point. So that service is going to remain. Aside from that, the other things that are going to be changing in the pre-patch, obviously your Keystone Hero, your Keystone Master, you'll still be able to get those, I believe, after the season ends. Because I think you're still going to get your IO score. You just won't be able to get any more, or you won't be eligible for the whatever the title is, the Draconic Hero title and the mount. So I do, and don't quote me on this, but I do believe you're still going to be able to gain IO. So if you don't quite make it this week to get your 2,000 or your 2,500 IO that you want, you should be able to do it next week and continue on. So because the affix rotation is going to continue on, so you'll still be able to do Fortified and Tyrannical. They just won't count for the overall seasonal score. So, all right, that was a lot of news. I think that's everything. All right, I think that's going to wrap up the news for today. But I did want to say one other thing, which is, there's a lot of information going around out there from Blizzard, and I've seen a lot of things over the past few weeks on Reddit or on Twitter, where people will say something and there's an assumption being made by the community. And a lot of people are like, well, I didn't know how this is going to work, or I wasn't sure if this was what information we're going to get. And it's a lot of the things that I've talked about on this show and that I think is really common in the WoW sphere of what people are discussing. Content creators, people who really go in on the WoW Twitter or the WoW Reddit or the WoW YouTube. Just regular people, they don't know what's going on. And I feel I want to be able to inform and educate people about what's going on, but I think it's really difficult because Blizzard themselves don't do a good job of providing this information to people. So, just remember to be patient with people when they don't seem to know what's going on. It's easy to jump on someone and downvote them or report them or flag them or whatever you're going to do. But a lot of people just don't know because they don't troll through the subreddit like people like I do. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out. It's not a big deal, but it is something that I've noticed, and it does not concern me, but I think it's a little unfortunate that people are just not as patient as they could be. So anyway, all right, let's move on to this week in World of Warcraft.
Let's talk about World of Warcraft.
In Dragonflight, this is Season 4, Week 13. Yes, this is the final week of Dragonflight Season 4. Anything that we get after this is going to be just gravy. But this is the final real week of Dragonflight. So after this, we're going to go into the War Within pre-patch, and Dragonflight will essentially be over, which is weird to say. I feel like it just got here. But Dragonflight is done. I'm just... all right, so the Mythic Plus Hotfixes of the week are Tyrannical, Incorporeal, and Spiteful, which this is just a great week to go out on. It's just Blizzard saying, screw you guys. We don't care. Tyrannical, you know it, you hate to see it. Bosses have 30% more health and deal 15% more damage. Incorporeal beings periodically spawn and cast Destabilize. If the cast goes off, player damage and healing is reduced by 50%. The debuff stacks, and the mobs do not take damage and can only be crowd controlled. This one I hate. And finally, Spiteful. Spirits rise from the corpses of non-boss enemies and chase down random players, dealing heavy melee damage. Okay, so this is a terrible week. This is a terrible trash week. It's a terrible boss week. The Incorporeal can spawn during a boss fight, so you still have to deal with it during a Tyrannical boss. The Spiteful, obviously, is going to spawn during the fight, and So the incorporeal beings, they can be stunned, they can be not interrupted, but there's different ways that you can do, and it'll cause them to restart their cast while they're being crowd controlled, like a short crowd control. But a long crowd control, your sheeps, your imprison, different ones like that, a paralysis, those are all going to completely get rid of the incorporeal mob. It doesn't matter at this point. This is all going away, but I'm just doing the thing. And then for Spiteful, the worst part about Spiteful is that the mobs will keep you in combat. So Algathar Academy, when you have to jump across the wind bridge, if you're in combat, you'll just fall to your death. There's a couple of dungeons that have things that you need to be out of combat to accomplish. But anyway, that's it. This is the last week. So there's no more Dragonflights. Well, no, that's not true. There are still going to be affixes next week, like I mentioned previously. But I think this is the last Spiteful that we're ever going to see. Hopefully, it's the last Spiteful we ever see. Hopefully, Blizzard doesn't bring this back at Season 2 or something. So yeah, there you go. The Awakened content this week, and this is the last week we're going to get specific Awakened content. Next week, it will be everything. So this week is the Season 1 content. So you have the Vault of the Incarnates. You have the World Boss, which I believe is the one in Teldraszus. The one that's in the Primalist Future. I didn't write it down. That's why I'm guessing. I believe it's that one. Anyway, it doesn't matter. You can look on your mini map or on your world map and you'll see where it is. The last hurrah quest is the Dragon's Bane Keep, the Community Feast in Azure Span for the Tuskar, and the Grand Hunt, wherever the Grand Hunt happens to be. You can do those 3 events, and once you complete them, you'll get the quest completed, and you will earn a piece of champion gear from the reward bag. So, if you've got that alt that you were trying to get a couple more pieces of gear, this is it, man. We're down to the wire. All right. The holiday event this week is Warlords of Draenor Time Walking, which I think is a great way to send this out because you get your alts up, give them some gear. So you'll get the Sign of Iron buff, which is Warlords of Draenor reputations gained from combat and quests increased by 50%. You'll get the 6 dungeons: Auchindoun, Bloodmaw, Slag Mines, Everbloom, Grimrail Depot, Shadowmoon Burial Grounds, and Skyreach. Then you can also pick up the quest A Savage Path Through Time from Khazra and Valdrakken to defeat 5 time-walking dungeons, and you will be rewarded with a normal piece of awakened gear, which again is champion level gear. So, like I said, if you've got an alt that needs some gear before going into the pre-patch event, this is a great way to do it. The PvP brawl this week is Classic Ashran. Boy, I hate this one. I hate Ashran, period, but I did Ashran back on Warlords of Draenor. I'm like, this is stupid. Why are we doing this? This makes no sense. Anyway, if you want to go spend an hour or two in a brawl, go to a Classic Ashran. And while you're there, you can do the quest Something Different, which is to win a PvP brawl, and you will be rewarded with Conquest, Honor, and Marks of Honor. Right. Jeez. First of all, the brawls are fun, but only about I'd say about half of them are really something interesting and unique. You're like, wow, that's really cool. And then the other half, it's like, okay, well, it's Classic Ashran. Yeah, I don't know. And as far as the time walking goes, I wish that we would get a Warlords of Draenor time walking raid like we have for Cataclysm, Wrath, and the Burning Crusade. Honestly, we could go with a Blackrock Foundry classic raid, man. That would be amazing. I guess we need to get a Pandaland raid first. So let's get Throne of Thunder and Blackrock Foundry into the rotation. Blizzard, come on, get on it. All right. The last thing, and this one's fun. The Auction House Dance Party is on July 22nd. So that's Monday? Yeah, Monday the 22nd. The main auction houses in Orgrimmar and Stormwind have been cleaned out and turned into dance parties for the day. Crowd on in and show some faction pride. It's literally just go into the auction house and dance. And you can't use the auction house while you're in there dancing. So if you want to use the auction house, you've got to go to Thunder Bluff. You've got to go to Ironforge. You got to go to whatever. So, I always like to point out areas, or whenever there's something that's really cool for a guild meeting. Auction house dance party is great for a guild meeting. Could you imagine going in there and everyone's dancing and you're trying to discuss guild business? Well, I don't know. Reggie ninja looted something. So anyway, auction house dance party this week as well. So this is the last week of Dragonflights. So everything for starting with next week, even though we're still going to have all the Dragonflight content that we're going to be doing, it's going to be the War Within. We're going to be in patch 11.0. whatever. And so this is it. Dragonflight was the shortest expansion by time that Blizzard has ever released. It was the fewest number of raid bosses that was ever released. There's just a lot that Dragonflight I felt missed out on, but there's a lot that Dragonflight got right. And there's a lot of things that I feel put Dragonflight in the top 10 or maybe even the top 3 expansions of all time. So we'll get into all that right now. We're going to do a little bit of a retrospective on Dragonflight, and we'll see kind of how we feel about Dragonflight now, and then something that we can come back and look back on in maybe a year or so from now. We'll do a review of this. So, all right, let's move on to that.
Let's talk about something new.
So with the Dragonflight expansion on its final week, I thought now would be a really good time to do a retrospective of Dragonflight, where it took us, where we are, where it fits in the pantheon of WoW expansions, which of its features and systems were good ones, which ones were not so good. What are people going to say about Dragonflight in the future? How is it going to be remembered? What is it that we are going to go, oh, Dragonflight was great because of this feature? So let's go through. I have some things written down here, but I'm going to kind of freeform this because honestly, it's really opinion based. And this is obviously my opinion. So first off, I wanted to talk about the features. So Dragonflight introduced us to a lot of new features, not the least of which was the obviously very defining dragon riding feature. It's not only something that was really important to the overall aesthetic of Dragonflight as an expansion, but it's something that is an evergreen feature that Blizzard is continuing on with into the War Within and into the future. Obviously, it's being renamed Skyriding since it's not dragon specific anymore, but that it really, when Dragonflight was announced I think a lot of people didn't really understand what dragon riding was going to be and how good it was going to be, or how divisive it was going to be, honestly, because in a lot of cases, a lot of people really hated Dragonflight because of dragon riding, because there were some accessibility issues that were created by dragon riding, trying to use your mouse and keyboard in a certain way. Not everyone plays the game banger Twitch style. Some people are much more casual. Some people do keyboard click. Some people do, or mouse click or keyboard turn. There's nothing wrong with that. You play the game how you want to play it. My thing is, Blizzard didn't really give players an alternative to doing things until later on, when they realized, you know what, not everyone can do this. Now, it was possible to complete all of the content early on, or at least complete the main story quest early on. But as soon as you get into no code, you realize I really can't do this without dragon riding, or I can't do this well. Anyway, I think dragon riding is going to go down as one of the greatest features of all time for World of Warcraft, and not just because, oh my god, it's so much fun. I think it's fundamentally changed the game, much in the same way that flying changed the game in the Burning Crusade. So as soon as you're able to fly, things are different. The game is different. The world is smaller. In Burning Crusade, you could just sit there and hover and wait for something to happen and then fly in at the last second. And dragon riding aims to change that, or it has changed that, in a way that, players now, you can't just sit and hover unless you switch to your static flying. Or steady flying, as they're calling it now. So I think from a feature standpoint, dragon riding obviously is going to be one of the greatest features that ever comes out of World of Warcraft. Yes, it is divisive, but I'd say that the majority of players really enjoyed and appreciated dragon riding, and it's something that they're going to enjoy and appreciate for years to come in World of Warcraft. Other features that I thought were really great for Dragonflight was, one of them was the upgrade system. Now, the upgrade system saw several iterations in Dragonflight itself. And I think that Blizzard had a good idea, and then they saw how the players reacted to it, and so they made some changes. Where we are now is actually really strong. One of the things that the old system created was an elitism where you go, well, you have all this currency that you can use to upgrade, but you can't upgrade unless you are at this score. This arbitrary score that is only really useful for Mythic Plus. So that's not really a good overall upgrade system. It was really only a Mythic Plus upgrade system. You couldn't upgrade raid gear. So there became a real big problem early in Season 1 where players, midway through Season 1, when players realized that if I'm not doing Mythic Plus, the gear that I'm getting is going to get... It's not good enough. It's not as good as it can be, right? So if you have Mythic Plus gear, you can upgrade it. If you have raid gear, it's static. So players felt forced to do Mythic Plus, and they couldn't just rely on raid. And that's something that's continued on to today. I don't think that that's something that's going to go away. I think players are always going to feel pressured to do Mythic Plus rather than whatever activity that they want to do. So, it is what it is. But I think the upgrade system overall, the way that the flight stones and the crests and the way that interaction, at first it was very confusing to people, but I think going forward, it's a really good system. It's really strong. I think it's really good for the game. I think it's one of those systems that's just going to continue. Blizzard will continue to iterate on it, and they're going to continue to make it better. And it's going to be something that we're really going to take for granted in future expansions, that's just how it works. Because remember, when Dragonflight launched, there was no upgrade system at all. You just got whatever you got. So it really mattered what keystone you ran, whereas after, 10.0.5, when they put in the upgrade system, it didn't matter. You could run the lowest keystone as long as you got a certain level of gear or a certain quality of gear. You could upgrade that all the way. So players were running 2s in Season 1 to get gear that they could then upgrade all the way up to the top with their Valor. Valor points or whatever. I forget what it was now. But regardless, the system is much better now with the new veteran track, champion track, hero track. I really like this system. Yes, it's maybe a little overly complicated, but it's a good system overall. So thumbs up for that one. And I do think that's also an evergreen feature that's going to continue on for many expansions to come. One thing that I feel like Dragonflight really struggled with was the introduction of all the public events. So there was a lot of public events, or there have been public events throughout the history of WoW, and they became more and more numerous over the years, but the ones in Dragonflight were really specific. They were on a timer. There were things that you needed to accomplish in order to do something, and you got rewards, pretty decent rewards for them, pretty early on. Some of them are good. Some of them were not. Yeah, Siege on Dragonbane Keep, I still think that's one of the worst public events ever because it happens so fast, and if you miss it, or you don't even have to participate, though. If you just stay there and you just pick a spot and you just, I'm safe here, I can just sit here, everybody else will come through, do the whole event, and you'll just get the bag of loot and you're done. So that one, not so great. On the other side of the spectrum is Researchers Under Fire, which required way too much from the players, and it asked way too much from an uncoordinated group of people who were doing Worlds content. So maybe that one was a little too much. I feel like Researchers would have been a really good scenario type experience. You get into a group, maybe it's a scenario raid, right? Where you go in and you get into an instance with 20 people, and all 20 of you are there to do this content. And so now you've got to go through, and in order to win the scenario, you've got to complete the events in the allotted time. I think that would have been kind of fun, but that's not what we got, and we got what we got, and that's fine. So yeah, other ones, Time Rifts was fine. Dream Surge was kind of lackluster. The Suffusion Camp I really hated because if you were not a tank, yeah, you were struggling in there. Tank or high melee DPS. If you were a caster or a healer, it was rough. So, yeah, and I think one of the things for the public events is that Blizzard designed them with the intent that you're going to do them in a group, and players went, cool, stuff I don't have to group for. So, again, if Blizzard really wants people to coordinate in a big group activity, make it a scenario, make it an instance, and you queue for it, and you go in there and you do the thing, and everybody feels really good about it at the end. Maybe it's like an extension of Delve. Maybe you could have like raid-sized Delves or something like that. Anyway, that's for the future us. All right. As far as the other features of Dragonflight, some of the things in there were good. The crafting system I thought was good. The way that they made the changes, but I think the crafting system, it's going to take a lot more work for it for us to know how well it's going to transition into the War Within. So we're resetting all of our knowledge points. It still has a lot of work left to do to earn itself. It's not a standalone, hey, dragon riding was cool, boom, done. Or the upgrade system worked pretty well. We've had the profession system for a long time, and the last time I got an overhaul was Legion. So yeah, I think it's really. I think for the profession system, it's really crucial that we wait until the War Within to know really how well the profession system worked, or at least the overhaul worked. I did like the ordering system, the crafting order system. I wish that it had been a little more frequently used. I don't like the ranking system on the gear. I felt like that was a bad implementation because, for the most part, players aren't going to want suboptimal gear. You go, hey, you can have the best gear or not the best gear. Players are going to be like, I'll take the best one, please. So yeah, that's unfortunate that Blizzard created a system where nobody wants a rank 1, and nobody's even making a rank 1. Why do we have rank 1s if people can't even make those? By the time you get enough knowledge points and enough skill points to make some of these recipes, it's impossible for you to craft a rank 1. Even if you have all rank 1 ingredients, your skill is high enough that you're going to at least craft a rank 2. So I just felt like the whole profession system needs to be streamlined a little bit, and maybe cleaned up just a smidge. But I think overall, going into the War Within, I'm optimistic. Let's go with that. I'm optimistic about it, and I think it's going to be a good feature for the long term of the game. Okay, as far as the content goes, so we have a couple of different areas that I wanted to look at. First of all, is PvP. I didn't do a whole lot of PvP in Dragonflight, so I really can't speak to PvP. I know a lot of people have been frustrated with the state of PvP. I know that part of part of PvP is, it's this solo shuffle that they added in that people really just are not, at least if you're a healer, you're really not having a good time there. I'm hoping that Blizzard pays a lot of attention to PvP, because honestly, I think the PvPers deserve it. And taking them off the Great Vault, I think is really good, because PvPers need to be a lot more deterministic with their gear. That's just the way it works. You've got to build because it's not about your gear. It's about how well you play your class and how well you know your cooldowns and what your counters are and all of those things. So, I think Blizzard is setting up for PvP to be in a really good spot in the War Within. I don't think it was in a great spot in Dragonflight, though. I honestly don't. So, unfortunately, that's part of something we have to consider. Whether I PvP or not, it's part of the game. So, all right. Dungeons. Oh boy, this is a big topic. First of all, I think that the Dragonflight dungeons, by and large, were pretty... All right, dungeons. Oh boy, here we go. I think that overall the Dragonflight dungeons were pretty okay. There was some that I liked better than others. I really liked Ruby Life Pools. I really liked Algathar Academy. I really liked Azure Vault. I did not like No Code Offensive or Brackenhide Hollow. So, it just depends. And I think everybody's going to have a different opinion of what I don't know that you can have a consensus of here's the best Dragonflight dungeon, here's the worst. I think you have ones that are generally considered better or generally considered worse than others. But overall, I think the dungeon pool was pretty okay. The Dawn of the Infinite Mega Dungeon was great. I loved it. My one complaint about it, though, is that I feel like for something that was a major part of the story for the next expansion, it was done in a dungeon or a mega dungeon that not a lot of people did. Even if you went back and did it later as Heroic or as a Mythic Plus Keystone, you're not getting the story properly. You don't really understand what's going on. It's chopped up weird. I think that the mega dungeons should be standalone experiences. Or it should be instead of doing a mega dungeon, do a mini raid. And I don't mean mini raid like a 3-boss raid, like a Trial of Valor or something like that. But I'm talking about like mini raid like UBRS. Have a 10-player raid. You go in there with 10 people and you run through the whole thing. And it's hard, but it's not really hard. Like if you tried to do UBRS with 5 players, it would be a lot harder. But if you did it with 10, it's pretty good. It's pretty easy. You could still wipe, but it's good. You could increase the difficulty a little bit there, but I feel like the mega dungeons going forward, if Blizzard or at some point in the future, if Blizzard decided to make them little mini 10-player raids, I think that would be a lot of fun. And just give some players an opportunity to, like a stepping stone to raid. But that being said, I really liked the Dawn of the Infinite dungeon. I really liked I think Iridikron's like a great villain. He's that mastermind villain that I love. He's like the Lex Luthor of World of Warcraft at this point. He's a great villain. I really enjoy Iridikron. And then Xal'atath, of course, we're going to get a lot of Xal'atath. I think we're all going to be sick of Xal'atath by the end of the War Within, honestly. If we end up killing Xal'atath at the end of the War Within, I think that's going to be okay with me. I'm going to be pretty okay with that. But yeah, so yeah, we have the Dawn of the Infinite Mega Dungeon was pretty good. The way that the Mythic Plus seasons were changed, so we had season 4 of Shadowlands where they were like, hey, let's bring back some old dungeons, and everyone went, okay. That's an interesting idea. And then for Dragonflight, they just started right off the bat. All right, season 1, we're going to bring in 4 dungeons from the past, which was weird. That was really weird. So we have 8 new dungeons, but we're only going to see 4 of them pretty consistently. But you could still run them as Heroic or Mythics. So, it's fine. Going into the War Within, though, the fact that we're going to get the seasonal dungeons are going to trickle down through Mythic 0 and through Heroic, that's really weird to me. So the only way you can see these other dungeons is if you run them in normal or a follower dungeon. That's really weird. I don't know how I feel about that. I think I hope Blizzard knows what they're doing with this, because it seems kind of weird. I think that overall the Mythic Plus dungeon pool was pretty good. I think most of the dungeons that I liked better ended up being the older ones that were brought back. Although there was your Darkheart Thickets, there was your Throne of the Tides, the ones that were a little more difficult than others. I liked having Dawn of the Infinite in there as a Mythic Plus dungeon. I really like breaking up the mega dungeons like that. So I hope they continue with that tradition. Even if they do make it a mini raid for Mythic Zero, I would, or like as a main good dungeon, when you break it down to a Mythic Plus, obviously you can scale it to 5 players. So, but anyway, that's like wish list stuff. They're not actually doing that. I just think it would be cool if they did. As far as the raids go, the first raid, Vault of the Incarnates, was pretty good. I really liked it. I think Razageth was one of the best end bosses that we've ever had. The encounter itself might have been difficult, but I think the boss, the character, the encounter, if you combine everything together, Razageth was one of the best. He's definitely S tier. I did a video on this on my YouTube channel on the best end bosses of all time. So if you haven't checked that out, you can see the video on there. I liked Vault of the Incarnates. I really liked it. Aberrus, I did not like. I didn't think it was a good raid. I don't like the whole storyline with Sibelian and Rathian and their daddy issues with Neltharion, and it's not really Neltharion, it's the Void taunting them, but they didn't know that, and he's playing them against each other. I don't know. Aberrus and then Sarkareth. I did not like Sarkareth as a end boss, as a character, he wasn't interesting. It was literally just more daddy issues. And that was the whole theme of that raid for me. I didn't like it. And then Amir Drasil. I really liked Amir Drasil. I thought that was good. I feel like it was a good end cap raid. I wish that we had gotten another raid, but I feel like if all we're going to get is Amir Drasil, I'll take it. I'm good with what we got. I think Farak is an amazing end boss. I think the only thing that keeps him out of the S tier is that his fight wasn't quite as elaborate as the Razageth fight. But he was every bit as interesting as a character as Razageth was. So for the raids, I definitely think the Blizzard hit a home run on the raids. I just wish that we had gotten more. We had 8 bosses in Vault of the Incarnates, 9 in Aberrus, and 9 in Amir Drasil. That's 27 bosses or 26 bosses, something like that. My math isn't working for me right now. That's not a lot. It's not a lot. It's the lowest number of raid bosses that we've ever gotten in the history of World of Warcraft as far as an expansion goes. So, I mean, I don't know. Is that a good thing? Are we better off with short and sweet and then have a recap season 4 type thing like we did now? Or what if we just do 3 seasons and out in the War Within? What if we just go 1, 2, 3, and then we're on to midnight, 18 months and we're done, or 20 months or whatever it ends up being? Is that better? I don't know. I honestly don't know. I just don't want another Siege of Orgrimmar or Hellfire Citadel where we're in there for over a year. That's the only current content. That's not fun, and I don't think anyone wants to go back there. So I think if the answer is we've got to do a season 4 where we've got a remix, and in this case it was 3 months of season 4. Yeah, 3 months. I think that's okay. I think we could live with that. As a WoW player base, I think we could handle that. So the other thing that I wanted to bring up as far as the content goes was the questing. I felt like the main storyline was pretty weak. I really didn't like it in terms of telling the story of the expansion. I felt like the story of the expansion was better told in the other side quest lines, the Blue Dragonflight quest line, the Green Dragonflight quest line, the Tyr quest line. Those were all better stories than the main Dragonflight storyline. So, I don't know. I think they turned Alexstrasza into a pretty boring character, honestly. I think Blizzard was really just struggling how to get through this. And honestly, in a lot of ways, Dragonflight is just a setup. It's like when you watch an episode of your favorite TV show and you're like, nothing happened. It was all a setup for the next episode. That's pretty much what Dragonflight is. It's a setup for the Worldsoul Saga. So if you're disappointed in that, well, unfortunately, that's what we've got. So, yeah. But as far as content goes, the content release cadence in Dragonflight, I feel was incredible. There was times where it was almost like, hey, this is too much content. You're giving us too much. We got the Forbidden Reach. We got Zerlek Cavern. We got the Emerald Dream. We had 3 distinctly different zones that Blizzard introduced to us. And yes, Forbidden Reach wasn't new. It was the Drakthir starting zone, but it was new to a lot of players, especially ones who hadn't played a Drakthir. Or when you level through there, you go through it so fast that you don't even remember half of the stuff that was there. So it was really kind of cool to get those new zones. But the content released so fast, and Blizzard spread the content out over .5 and .7 patches, which it makes it look like we're getting more content, or we're getting content more frequently than in previous expansions. And I think that's because they included more in those big patches. But overall, I'd say we got more content every single time there was an update than we ever have in the past. If you combined all of the 10.0 content into 10.0, and then everything from that, you got 10.1, 10.1.5, 10.1.7. You combined all of that into 10.1. That's probably the biggest patch we've ever gotten in the history of World of Warcraft. That's a lot of stuff. So yeah, okay, I get it that they spread things out, and so we got fewer per each of these dot patches. But honestly, it was fine. I was good with it. The one thing that I will say is that Dragonflight ended way sooner than I thought it was going to. I honestly thought we were going to go on until November, and here we are in July talking about the end of Dragonflight. So I don't know. I would say, and I mentioned this earlier, but I do believe, that Dragonflight is the shortest expansion in terms of length of time from release until the pre-patch for the next expansion. So, take from that what you will. I don't know. I don't know if that's, I don't know. But regardless, I think so the question that I want to ask is, where does Dragonflight rank? And I don't know that we can give it a specific place in the hierarchy yet. And, obviously there's a lot of disagreement in the community over what's the best expansion of all time. Some people are going to say Legion. Some people are going to say Wrath. A lot of people right now might say Mop. Like, oh, Mop was so good, I forgot how good it was. Yeah, it was. It was good. But you're forgetting that there just wasn't a lot of content. And most of the content that we got when there was an update was daily quests. Hey, go do daily quests. Yeah, that was it. We got scenarios. Pet battles was probably one of the biggest features that they added that nobody really cared about. Or I shouldn't say nobody. A lot of people didn't really care about. So, but as far as Dragonflight's ranking or its place amongst the hierarchy, I don't know. I don't know if Dragonflight is going to live on as one of the top 3. I think it's definitely top 5. I think if you had to say of the 9 expansions we've had so far, Dragonflight is in the top 5, not in the bottom 4, or not in the bottom 5, however you want to split that. But to put it in the top 3, I think would be a little tough. I would probably put it in the top 3 personally, but I know a lot of people would probably have a hard time with that. So I don't know. What do you think about Dragonflight? How does it make you feel as a player, as somebody who enjoys World of Warcraft? These are the things that really the questions we need to ask ourselves when we are giving Blizzard feedback on content. And if you liked Dragonflight and you go, yeah, the story wasn't great, okay, well, that's the feedback that they need so that the content is what we actually want as a player base. So I think that's really important to reflect on what we've gotten and where we are, and to make sure that we're continuing to have these discussions going forward. So, all right, that's going to wrap it up for this segment. Let's move on now to the weekly rant.
It's time for the weekly rant.
All right, I don't have a weekly rant this week, again. And like I mentioned previously, I'm probably going to be retiring this segment from the podcast. So this is the last time we're going to hand this off to the weekly rant. But as I mentioned earlier, I had to move all of my YouTube videos to a new YouTube channel because the way the YouTube algorithm works is it stinks. So hopefully that helps things going forward. I really am frustrated with the loss of Google Podcasts. I feel like that really screwed things up because YouTube doesn't really function like a traditional podcast. You're just watching a YouTube video. Even if you're only listening to it, you're still playing a YouTube video. So that doesn't show up in your podcast statistics at all. It doesn't show up as a download. It shows up as a view on YouTube. So you have to add them together, but some people are going to watch both. And it's like this weird thing. So anyway, so definitely, if you get a chance, check out the YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/@AzerothUnitedPod. And then my regular YouTube channel is Denethar01, so you can also check that out. And I will probably be taking some of the episodes or some of the segments from this podcast and breaking them up into episodes. I'm just going to kind of split the content between the two. But I do think that having the YouTube content on its own is the way to go for the future. So better to do it now and rip the Band-Aid off and let it kind of do its own thing, and then we can continue on with that. So, all right. I think that's going to wrap it up for us today. Thank you so much for listening and or watching. I really appreciate it. It's always a pleasure and a privilege to get on this microphone and to talk to you about World of Warcraft, which is one of my favorite things to talk about. It's been fun. It's been a journey. It's been fun. I get some good positive feedback. I get some negative feedback. But the more feedback I get, the better, because then I can tailor the podcast to what people want. Whether it's, hey, do more YouTube videos or do less YouTube videos. You know, you've got a face for radio. However you want to provide feedback, if you're willing to say anything, even if it's just, hey, I watched your video on YouTube, it was pretty good, or I listened to your podcast when I was cleaning out my garage. Thanks for rambling for an hour, and it just made the time go by. Any feedback you want to give, I really appreciate it. So, and like I said, if you do give us a review on Apple Podcasts, I will read those on the air. So, if you want to get a hold of me directly, you can reach out to me on Twitter. I am at Denethar. Or you can email me. I'm denethar1@gmail.com. You can also occasionally catch me streaming on Twitch or on YouTube. I am at Denethar01 on both of those platforms. And then, again, the podcast is on YouTube at Azeroth United Pod. So if you want to check that out there. And I do have a Twitter for the podcast. It's AZU Podcast. But again, that's, I mostly just use that to promote the new episodes of the podcast. So. All right. Thank you again for listening. Remember to be good to each other out there. That's a real person on the other side of that keyboard, and maybe they don't like the same expansion that you do, but that's okay. You can still be nice to them and smile and be good to each other out there. All right. I love you all, and I'll see you in Azeroth.